All right. So, no, it's okay. No cartels. So today we are reading from the Nectar of Instruction. It is Text-6. So I'll just read the Sanskrit, and then I'll read the English translation and the purport, some of the purport. Drishtai sabhava janater vapushascha doshar napakrita tvamahi bhakta janasya pashyat gangam basam nakalu budbuddha pena pankar brahma dravatvam abhagachati niradharmaye. All right, so word by word translation. Drishtai, seen by ordinary vision. Subhava janitai, born of one's own nature. Vapushaha, of the body. Cha, and doshai, by the faults. Na, not. Prakritatvam, the state of being material. Iha, in this world. Bhakta janasya, of a pure devotee. Pashyat, one should see. Ganga ambasam, of the Ganges waters. Na, not. Kalu, certainly. Buddha pena pankai, by bubbles, foam, and mud. Brahma dravatatvam, the transcendental nature. Abhagachati, is spoiled. Niradharmai, the characteristics of water. All right, translation. Being situated in his original Krishna conscious position, a pure devotee does not identify with the body. Such a devotee should not be seen from a materialistic point of view. Indeed, one should overlook a devotee's having a body born in a low family, a body with a bad complexion, a deformed body, or a diseased or infirm body. According to ordinary vision, such imperfections may seem prominent in the body of a pure devotee. But despite such seeming defects, the body of a pure devotee cannot be polluted. It is exactly like the waters of the Ganges, which sometimes during the rainy season are full of bubbles, foam, and mud. The Ganges waters does not become polluted. Those who are advanced in spiritual understanding will bathe in the Ganges without considering the condition of the water. Purport. Shuddha Bhakti, the activity of the soul proper, in other words, engagement in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, is performed in a liberated condition. In Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 14, text 26, it is stated, Mam chayo vibhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatitaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, who does not fall down in any circumstance, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Avibhichareni bhakti means unalloyed devotion. A person engaged in devotional service must be free from material motives. In this Krishna consciousness movement, one's consciousness must be changed. If consciousness is aimed toward material enjoyment, it is material consciousness, and if it is aimed toward serving Krishna, it is Krishna consciousness. A surrendered soul serves Krishna without material considerations. Anya bilashita shunyam. Bhakti-rasamrita Sindhu 1:11. Jnana karmanit avritam. Service, which is transcendental to the activities of the body and mind, such as jnana, mental speculation, and karma, fruit of work, is called pure bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga is the proper activity of the soul, and when one actually engages in unalloyed, uncontaminated devotional service, he is already liberated. Sagunan samititaitan. Bhagavad Gita 14:26. Krishna's devotee is not subjected to material condition, even though his bodily features may appear materially conditioned. One should therefore not see a pure devotee from a materialistic point of view. Unless one is actually a devotee, he cannot see another devotee perfectly. As explained in the previous verse, there are three types of devotees: Kanishta Adhikari, Madhyama Adhikari, and Uttama Adhikari. The Kanishta Adhikari cannot distinguish between a devotee and a non-devotee. He is simply concerned with worshipping the deity in the temple. A Madhyamadikari, however, can distinguish between the devotee and the non-devotee, as well as between the devotee and the Lord. Thus he treats the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the devotee, and the non-devotee in different ways. No one should criticize the bodily defects of a pure devotee. If there are such defects, they should be overlooked. What should be taken into account is the spiritual master's main business, which is devotional service, pure service to the Supreme Lord. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, text 30, Apichet Siddharachayo Bhajate Mam Ananyabhak Sadhu Eva Samantyavya Samyag Vavasito Hisaha. Even if a devotee sometimes seems to engage in abominable activities, he should be considered a sadhu, a saintly person, because his actual identity is that of one engaged in the loving service of the Lord. In other words, he is not to be considered an ordinary human being. Even though a pure devotee may not be born in a Brahmin or Goswami family, if he is engaged in the service of the Lord, he should not be neglected. In the actuality, there cannot be a family of Goswamis based on material considerations, caste, or heredity. The Goswami title is actually the monopoly of the pure devotees. Thus, we speak of the 6 Goswamis, headed by Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami. Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami had practically become Muslims and had therefore changed their names to Bir Kas and Sakar Malik. But Mahaprabhu himself made them Goswamis. Therefore, the Goswami title is not hereditary. The word Goswami refers to one who can control his senses, who is master of the senses. A devotee is not controlled by the senses, but is controller of the senses. Consequently, he should not be called Swami or Goswami. Even though he may not be, consequently, he should be called Swami or Goswami, even though he may not be born in a Goswami family. According to this formula, the Goswamis who are descendants of Sri Nityananda Prabhu and Sri Advaita Prabhu are certainly devotees, but devotees coming from other families should not be discriminated against. Indeed, whether the devotees come from a family of previous acharyas or from an ordinary family, they should be treated equally. One should not think, oh, here is an American Goswami, and discriminate against him. Nor should one think, here is a Nityananda Vangsha Goswami. There is an undercurrent of protest against our awarding the title Goswami to the American Vaishnavas of the Krishna consciousness movement. Sometimes people flatly tell the American devotees that their sannyas or title of Goswami is not bona fide. However, according to the statements of Srila Rupa Goswami in this verse, an American Goswami and a Goswami in a family of acharyas are non-different. On the other hand, a devotee who has attained the title of Goswami but is not born of a Brahmin father or of a Goswami in the family of Nityananda or Advaita Prabhu should not be artificially puffed up by thinking that he has become a Goswami. He should always remember that as soon as he becomes materially puffed up, he immediately falls down. This Krishna consciousness movement is a transcendental science, and there is no room for jealousy. This movement is meant for the Paramahamsas who are completely free from all jealousy. Paramam nirmatsaranam. One should not be jealous, whether he is born in a family of Goswamis or has the title of Goswami awarded to him. As soon as anyone becomes envious, he falls down from the platform of Paramahamsa. If we consider the bodily defects of a Vaishnava, we should understand that we are committing an offense at the lotus feet of the Vaishnava. An offense at the lotus feet of a Vaishnava is very serious. Indeed, Mahaprabhu has described this offense as Hati Mata, the mad elephant offense. A mad elephant can create a disaster, especially when it enters into a nicely trimmed garden. One should therefore be very careful not to commit any offense against a Vaishnava. Every devotee should be ready to take instructions from a superior Vaishnava, and a superior Vaishnava must be ready to help an inferior Vaishnava in all respects. One who is superior or inferior according to his spiritual development in Krishna consciousness. Period. One is forbidden to observe the activities of a pure Vaishnava from a material point of view. For the neophyte especially, considering a pure devotee from a material point of view is very injurious. One should therefore avoid observing a pure devotee externally, but should try to see the internal features and understand how he's engaged in the transcendental love and service of the Lord. In this way, one could avoid seeing the pure devotee from a material point of view, and thus one can gradually become a pure devotee himself. Those who think that Krishna consciousness is limited to a certain section of people, a certain section of devotees, or a certain tract of land are generally prone to see the external features of the devotee. Such neophytes, unable to appreciate the exalted service of the advanced devotee, try to bring the Mahabhagavat to their platform. We experience such difficulty in propagating this Krishna consciousness all over the world. Unfortunately, we are surrounded by neophyte godbrothers who do not appreciate the extraordinary activities of spreading Krishna consciousness all over the world. They simply try to bring us to their platform, and they try to criticize us in every respect. We very much regret their naive activities and poor fund of knowledge. An empowered person who is actually engaged in the confidential service of the Lord should not be treated as an ordinary human being, for it is stated that unless one is empowered by Krishna, one cannot spread the Krishna consciousness movement all over the world. When one thus criticizes a pure devotee, he commits an offense, Vaisnava aparadha, that is very obstructive and dangerous for those who desire to advance in Krishna consciousness. A person cannot derive any spiritual benefit when he offends the lotus feet of a Vaishnava. Everyone should therefore be very careful not to be jealous of an empowered Vaishnava or a Shuddha Vaishnava. It is an offense to consider an empowered Vaishnava an object of disciplinary action. It is offensive to try to give him advice or to correct him. One can distinguish between a neophyte Vaishnava and an advanced Vaishnava by their activities. The advanced Vaishnava is always situated as the spiritual master, and the neophyte is always considered his disciple. The spiritual master must not be subjected to the advice of a disciple, nor should a spiritual master be obliged to take instructions from those who are not his disciples. This is the sum and substance of Srila Rupa Goswami's advice in the 6th verse. Okay. Om Gyanatipadandasya Gyananjana Shulakaya Chakshudamaditam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karidvachalam Pangam Langayate Girimya Kripadamaham Vande Shri Guranditaranam Vancha Kapurivascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavane Beo Vaishnave Beo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I'll read the translation again. Being situated in his original Krishna conscious position, a pure devotee does not identify with the body. Such a devotee should not be seen from a materialistic point of view. Indeed, one should overlook a devotee as having a body born in a low family, a body with a bad complexion, a deformed body, or a diseased or infirm body. According to ordinary vision, such imperfections may seem prominent in the body of a pure devotee, but despite such seeming defects, the body of a pure devotee cannot be polluted. It is exactly like the waters of the Ganges, which sometimes during the rainy season are full of bubbles, foam, and mud. The Ganges waters do not become polluted. Those who advance in spiritual understanding will bathe in the Ganges without considering the condition of the water. So Srila Prabhupada, yes, is very nicely translated this book, The Nectar of Instruction, for the guidance of all of his children and grandchildren and followers and friends. And yeah, this is a very important text because it explains how, we shouldn't be, you could say, proud in the sense that being proud is actually, you could say, unintelligent because we lose a lot of benefit. We really lose out. And the examples given of the Ganges. So those of you who have been to India, you may have encountered the river, the Ganges River. And yeah, from a material estimation, especially some parts of the Ganges River is quite, say, polluted by so many, foam and bubbles and dirt, and even there's sometimes dead corpses I've never seen human corpses, but I've heard of animal corpses, buffaloes and cows and so many different animal corpses floating down the river. So from a material estimation, it will look contaminated or impure. But specifically, this verse is saying that those who are intelligent or those who are devotees or those who know, they understand that although materially it may look polluted, but spiritually it is very beneficial. Spiritually very beneficial. And therefore, a learned person will bathe in the Ganges despite what it looks like externally. So, similarly, Srila Prabhupada translates this verse by Rupa Goswami. And in this verse, it's saying that a devotee may have been born in a low family or have a body with a bad complexion, deformed body, diseased or infirm body. But despite these, you could say, imperfections on the material platform, one should still associate with that particular devotee. One should still associate with that particular devotee. And why is that? Because although just as the Ganges may be polluted from a material perspective, similarly a devotee may be not in a very good condition from a material perspective, from material vision. But by associating with that particular devotee, even though there's so many imperfections, apparent imperfections, one will become purified. So this is extremely important because the tendency is we have a tendency to judge things or judge people on external platform, superficially. Oh, because they're born in a religious family, or they're born in India, or they're born with some wealth and so on, then I should respect them. And specifically in the realm of Krishna consciousness, a lot of the times people think that, because they're born in a low family, they cannot advance in Krishna consciousness to the level or to the degree that those who born in a religious family can, such as a family of, for example, someone born in the family in India, which shows that one may theoretically know the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, but they actually don't understand it. Because the philosophy of Krishna consciousness is the opposite. Opposite in the sense that that particular idea is just wrong, as this verse is explaining. That even though one is born in a low family, even though one has so many apparent imperfections on the material platform, one can still become extremely advanced in Krishna consciousness. Just as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Krishna come again about 500 years ago, who did he make the acharya or the teacher of the chanting of the holy name? Somebody from material estimation was not born in a Brahmin family. He was born in a, you could say opposite of a Brahmin family. And you could say from a material perspective, any other person of that time, practically speaking, would never even think about making him a great acharya, a great teacher of the chanting of the holy name of Krishna. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did. And also with Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, although they were born in very high families, they, from a cultural perspective, they're associating with certain personalities, and at that particular time, after associating with those personalities, they were considered to be you could say, in a lower position, which means that it's very difficult for them. It would be very difficult for them to reestablish themselves in a, you could say, Vaishnav or Vaishnav community again, Brahmin community. So yeah, the philosophy is that yes, to be born in a good family, sure, that's nice, and that's beneficial. But even though one may not be born in a nice family, religious family, still they could become qualified, and by their association, one could become purified. So, in other words, this idea that, well, sometimes people think, oh, okay, well, I'll only accept a guru, or I'll only accept advice from somebody who's born in India, who has brown skin, which Srila Prabhupada would say, okay, this is skin disease, too much attachment to the skin, because after all, as Srila Prabhupada makes a point here, we're not these bodies, we're the souls. The soul is not Indian or American or German or Russian or any of these different ethnicities. The soul's, spirit, soul. So, therefore, this idea that, oh, I only accept initiation or only accept guidance or instruction from somebody from India, it's a misconception. And Prabhupada and Rupa Goswami and so many acharyas, they weren't into that because it's not the philosophy. So in other words, we shouldn't think, oh, here's an Indian Goswami and here's an American Swami, and I'll make sure to offer the Indian Swami lots of respect and worship. But with the American Swami, oh, he's American. Because there's a saying, every saint has a past and every sinner has a future. So what does that mean practically? It means that every saint has a past, which means there's generally a time in which they weren't a saint, in which they were fallen. It means they weren't, they were sinful. But they became a saint. So every saint has a past, and the idea is every sinner has a future. So in other words, someone who's fallen, who is immoral in so many different ways, they could become a devotee. They could become a sadhu, saintly person. And Prabhupada makes the point that one should not make distinctions. That, okay, well, someone was born in a pure family and they're pure their whole life, and this person wasn't born in a pure family, but he got purified by devotional service. Now I'm going to see the one who's born in a pure family as better. Prabhupada said you should see them as non-different. And he gave the example of somebody who's wealthy. So you could become wealthy by birth, you could become wealthy by your strong endeavors, right? Or you could become wealthy by inheritance. But whether it just comes to you one day by inheritance, or whether you're born with it, or whether you worked hard for it, at the end of the day, a wealthy person is a wealthy person. So similarly, whether one was coming from the spiritual world to distribute Krishna consciousness, or whether one has become perfect by some mercy, some special mercy of Krishna or his devotees, or whether one worked very hard for it, which means worked hard for it and a combination of Krishna's mercy and the devotee's mercy, one should be considered to be, one should be given the same respect. There shouldn't be any discrimination. A wealthy person is a wealthy person. And as Prabhupada says here, that sometimes people just flatly say, "Oh, well, you being a Vaishnava, though you're from America, it's actually not authentic. You're actually not a Vaishnava. Wait till your next birth in India." Or they say, "You being an American Swami, it's not authentic. You have to wait till next birth." So they say that sometimes. And excuse me. On one particular occasion, Srila Prabhupada was in India, and some of his disciples went to a temple in India, and the pujaris, the priests said to the devotees that, "Oh, it's very nice that you are from America and that you've taken to this Krishna consciousness movement, and if you just continue, that in your next life you'll take birth in India, and then you can worship the deities, just like we're worshiping the deities." And then he went home. I mean, he went to talk to Prabhupada. The devotees went to talk to Prabhupada, and they told Prabhupada about that. And then Srila Prabhupada told the devotees that you should have told the priests that it's very nice that you're worshiping the deities here in India. And if you continue to do this throughout your life, in your next birth, you'll take birth in America. And you'll be able to join the Hare Krishna movement, engage in the Sankirtan movement, preaching Krishna consciousness. So, Prabhupada, he made devotees, sadhus, saintly persons, swamis from America, from different places throughout the world, and he continues to do that today. And Prabhupada took it as a serious thing. It wasn't like, oh, okay, it was just kind of like, we're going to give them sannyas for encouragement, or we're going to make them swamis for encouragement, we're going to make them brahmins for encouragement. But Prabhupada actually had faith that the Americans and others throughout the world could actually, and were actually Vaishnavas, could actually pull it off. So anybody who claims to be a follower of Prabhupada, they should have this understanding as well, that I'm part of ISKCON, I'm part of the Hare Krishna movement, and Srila Prabhupada had a conception that Americans, Europeans, throughout the world, whatever continent, whatever country, whatever ethnicity, they could all become Vaishnavas. Prabhupada had faith in that. So similarly, followers of ISKCON, who claim to be followers of ISKCON and followers of Prabhupada, they should also have faith in that. In other words, they should take the American and European and different ethnic group of Vaishnavas seriously. Or else, what type of consciousness is that? That's called material consciousness, or skin disease, as Prabhupada would say. Like one devotee, he told me that there was some Indian devotees, means born in India, and Indian body devotees, and that they kind of had a conception that, well, the Indian swamis in ISKCON are better, without a doubt. No question, no argument, no discussion about it. They're definitely better than the American swamis by far. And there was a bit of offensive mentality there, in that they didn't really take the other swamis so seriously, just because they're American. And then later on, this Indian couple, they started chanting Hare Krishna more, engaged in the process of devotional service, and they became more and more free, you could say, from the bodily concept of life, thinking that, okay, we're Indians and here's an American Swami, and immediately kind of disqualifies them in so many ways. I'm definitely not going to take initiation from American Swami. It's going to be an Indian one. But over time, the persons became purified, and they ended up taking initiation from American Swami. So they transcended that idea. Now, of course, I know sometimes those of Indian origin, they like to take initiation from swamis who are of Indian origin because maybe it's easier with the language. Maybe they speak Hindi or Bengali, or maybe just because they grew up in the same maybe cultural ethos, they could kind of connect with them on different levels. And okay, that's all understandable and fine. But we should be careful that we don't develop this mentality that, oh, it's American Swami, kind of metaphysically, kind of throw them in the trash, because they're born in a particular place. So that's not Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's understanding. That's not Krishna's understanding. That's not Rupa Goswami's understanding. That's a materially induced misconception. So, and we shouldn't consider the bodily defects of a Vaishnava. And Prabhupada goes on to say that if we get into this mentality of considering Vaishnavas in the material way, from a material standpoint, then we create you could say, series of bad reactions within our own lives. So in other words, it comes back at us. That's called karma. In specific, it's called hati mata, which means the mad elephant offense, which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave this, it's like allegory or analogy that imagine there's a very beautiful garden, right? Plumeria trees and jasmine flowers and rose bushes and gardenias, all types of beautiful flowers and fruits growing. And a big, full-size elephant, angry for some reason, just runs through that garden and completely destroys it. So similarly, in this particular analogy is that the elephant is Vaishnava Aparad, means we commit offenses towards Vaishnavas some way or the other through our words, through our thoughts, through our activities. And then this Vaishnava Aparad, this offensive mentality, or these aparads, which means apa means without, and radha, without radha, means without Radharani's mercy, who's in charge of bhakti. That means our devotional consciousness is very much damaged. So the Vaishnava Aparad takes the form of an elephant, mad elephant, angry, runs through the garden. And this garden is specifically it says the bhakti lata bij is there, or the bhakti plant. In other words, our devotional sentiments, our devotional desires, our devotional interests, our attraction for Krishna consciousness becomes trampled by this mad elephant, and we find ourselves in a state of material desires where we are lacking interest in Krishna consciousness, and we're seeing the world as the material world and all of its illusions as very interesting because of this Vaishnava Aparad. So it creates disaster. And therefore, we should try to purify our consciousness in such a way is in that we will not commit this Vaishnava Aparad. Prabhupada's talking about this Aparad in relation to criticizing devotees for their defects, seeing them with material vision. So, in other words, Krishna consciousness is not limited to a certain section of people, such as those born in India or Hindus, and not a certain section of devotees. It's not limited to like those in Orissa or Bengal or Vrindavan. It's not a certain tract of land, like we mentioned. And generally, people who think like that, they're prone to see the external features of devotee. They think, oh, these people are not qualified for external reasons. And this again, develops an offensive mentality which harms one's devotional life. So, and this also manifests in the sense of not thinking anybody's qualified to be my guru. Because if we see people from mundane point of view, in other words, focusing on their apparent faults, or in any way seeing them from a mundane point of view, or you could say thinking ourselves better than them, or you could say second guessing people, doubting people, or doubting devotees, second guessing devotees, then there's a tendency to think, well, maybe there's a few qualified, but I kind of doubt it. But this is a fallacy in itself, a philosophical fallacy, because Krishna is all powerful, and the process of bhakti is even more powerful than Krishna, as stated in the Nectar devotion. So those who take to the process of bhakti, through the most powerful process of bhakti, they can become qualified. And what does it mean to be qualified? It means to become a devotee, and to become a pure devotee. So those who say that Prabhupada or the process of bhakti cannot create pure devotees, it's a misconception. They can't. It does create pure devotees, and there are pure devotees. And we shouldn't think that, oh well, it's hard to find a pure devotee. I mean, one time when Srila Prabhupada, many years ago in the early days, he said devotees were asking how many pure devotees are there in ISKCON, and then Prabhupada asked his disciples, how many devotees do we have in ISKCON? And the devotees said, we have 50 devotees. And Prabhupada says that means there's 50 pure devotees in ISKCON. Because there's a pure devotee by, you could say, like a full-on pure devotee, which means completely pure. And there's pure devotee by intention, means they're intending to be pure. They're striving in that direction. They follow the regulative principles. They chant their 16 rounds. They try their best to spread the Sankirtan movement. And we should have faith that there are such people like that. Vacho vegam manasa kroda vegam jiva vegam udarapasta vegam etan vegam yo vishaheta dira sarvam epimam prativim shushisha. As the first verse of this book says, those who can control. It doesn't say that those who have completely, they have disappeared. It says those who could control their urges of the tongue, belly, genitals, mind, anger, actions, words, they can create disciples all over the world. So if the followers of ISKCON are under Prabhupada, and they're under Prabhupada's instructions, and they're following the instructions of Srila Prabhupada, the principles, chanting their rounds, and so on, and what to speak, they've been doing it for so many years, then yes, they can become guru. And there are so many who are gurus. Of course, there's people who are gurus and then leave their guru position due to weakness and so many other different, maybe offenses, so many different things like that. Of course, there's failures in every single religious society of the world since practically time immemorial. So that's expected. But one shouldn't go their whole life without having a spiritual master, without having a guru. And this idea that there's no qualified gurus, again, it's completely wrong. And you may even argue that better have an imperfect guru than no guru. Better have an imperfect guru than be not connected to the Disciplic Succession. So, there's Prabhupada, since time immemorial, they've had the system of guru, that Krishna, Lord Brahma, Vyasadeva, Narada, so many different personalities coming all the way down to Srila Prabhupada, and then Prabhupada's disciples carried it on, and his grand disciples carried it on. So, better to be connected to an imperfect guru who is connected to Srila Prabhupada by initiation, who is Prabhupada connected to Bhaktisiddhanta, going all the way back up to Krishna, rather than just saying, oh, forget all about it and nobody's qualified. That's not the system. That's not the Vedic system. That's a speculative idea. And the point being is that there are always gurus, personalities who will initiate us into this disciplic succession, connecting us to Srila Prabhupada and the whole disciplic succession. So one should not wait till the fag end of life to do that, to take initiation. I got initiated when I was 19 years old here at the temple. Now I'm 30. I'll be 32 soon. So I got initiated when I was young. I didn't wait till the fag end of my life to get initiated. And of course, sometimes people wait. Sometimes people are not ready, are not willing, not able to, for so many different reasons: social, cultural, societal. They have so many doubts, so many different things. But one should try to understand the importance of it. It's serious, and it's recommended throughout all the Vedic literatures, right? Tasmad gurum prapadyate jigya shreya uttamam. Those who want the highest good, they should approach a bona fide spiritual master and take initiation. Or tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevya upadanti te jnanam jnaninas tatvadarshanaha. That the self-realized souls, they can impart knowledge to you because they've seen the truth. So therefore you should approach them. You should humbly submit yourself, offer service, ask questions. Yeah, take initiation. And just to wait ad infinitum forever, so long to wait, it's not the greatest policy. And it's a policy that actually, you could say, hampers our Krishna consciousness. Why not take the chance? Why not take the chance? Prabhupada, if we follow Prabhupada talked about it all the time, accepting guru, and the whole disciplic succession. There's a whole Hari Bhakti Vilas by Sanatana Goswami discusses these things. It's a traditional, serious thing, spiritual, cultural, traditional thing that people do. So if we want to make advancement in Krishna consciousness, why not take a risk? Why not get initiated? What's the big holdup? And I'm not saying this just to I'm not initiating anybody. People are probably happy about that. But I'm not saying this to increase the numbers of the temple, or increase the members of the staff or something like that. I'm saying it because that's what human form of life is about. The lower species of life, they don't have a guru. Hogs, dogs, camels, donkeys, there's no guru there. But in human form of life, one should have a guru. All cultured people, they strive towards getting a guru, and they get a guru. So if we have any reservations about it, we should really look deeply into our hearts and think, what is my reservations? Why am I doubting so much? Why am I holding back so much in terms of this step in life? And if we have our doubts and our reservations, then we should present them to Vaishnavas, to devotees, to get this cleared up, because it's a really bad misconception. One doesn't need to. It says that in order to get the fruit of a particular mantra, we have to get that mantra in disciplic succession. Sampradaya Vahinam Ye, like that. That we have to get this mantra in disciplic succession. Now, we will get some benefit. by chanting Hare Krishna. And I'm not trying to say anybody who's not initiated just give up chanting. That's not the point. But that's another problem with conditioned souls is, all right, well, I have to take a really big step in order to get the full fruit, and I'm not getting much benefit if I don't take that step. So I might as well just give up chanting. That's a cheating mentality. That's a lazy mentality. Mentality should be that, okay, if I need to get the fruit, if this is how I get the fruit, then let me take this next step. Because fruit means the result of chanting, which is love for Krishna. So that should be considered seriously. Everybody's serious about getting married. Everybody's serious about having children. Everybody's serious about their career. Everybody's serious about gardening in their front yard or backyard. Everybody's serious about buying their new car, their new Tesla. Everybody's serious about so many things. But those of us who are engaged in spiritual life, we should be serious about trying to get closer to Krishna. And getting closer to Krishna, we don't approach Krishna directly. That's not the method. We approach Krishna via the spiritual master, who is connected to Srila Prabhupada, who is connected with the whole disciplic succession, all the way going back up to Krishna. So we should transfer our serious tendencies towards at least looking within our heart and trying to be introspective and trying to figure out, okay, what do I need to do to take the next step? And for many people, the next step should be initiation into the disciplic succession. So Prabhupada goes on to say that, and this is how we actually will transcend this material vision, is that, first of all, chanting Hare Krishna, purifying our consciousness, but a big step in transcending our material vision is to become initiated by a bona fide spiritual master and be connected in the disciplic succession, the line of gurus and disciples, formerly reconnected with Krishna. And this will help us break all this type of skin disease in which we are function on the bodily concept of life. And it'll help us develop love for Krishna. So Prabhupada goes on to explain that sometimes those who are, say, less advanced, they don't recognize the qualities and activities of a devotee empowered to spread the message of Krishna throughout the world. So Srila Prabhupada is indirectly talking about himself here, that his god brothers, which he clearly says here, would criticize him about what he was doing to spread Krishna consciousness, but Prabhupada said it's actually improper. They should actually appreciate. So this business of criticizing any devotee, especially pure devotees, but any devotee, it's actually poisonous. And again, we throw all this bad energy, per se, towards a devotee, and it just comes back right at us. Just like they have a saying that those of you who believe in ghosts out there, if you curse somebody to be haunted by a ghost, if that person's extremely powerful, what happens is that curse comes back to you. So you have to be careful who you mess with, who you try to curse by sending a ghost. Just like, for example, in my spiritual master, His Holiness Giraj Swami was in Juhu, Bombay, and he was helping establish a temple there for Srila Prabhupada. And at one particular time, it was a big drama, big saga. It was very difficult to establish, but they did it. But at one point, some government officials in Juhu, Mumbai, they came and they started dismantling the temple. They're taking blow torches and trying to dismantle the temple. So then across the street, there was this man who was quite tamasic by nature, kind of in the mode of ignorance. He was like doing seances, where he would like talk with the dead, and a lot of people were coming to his house to have these seances done, and yeah, so many things like that, trying to communicate with ghosts, and so it was quite strange fellow. But while this temple was being dismantled, he was across the street and he was laughing. He was going, ah ha ha, the temple's being dismantled, like some type of, you could say, demented laughter. And then he, one devotee said, just as you're laughing that Krishna's temple is being burned, she said, one day you'll be burned. So in this particular devotee, she was like an elderly Indian woman there, and she kind of had some mystic powers. Her name was Yashoda. So anyway, she said that. So then some time later, some weeks, some months later, I'm not sure if it was weeks or months, but the man, all of a sudden during Mangal Arti, or in the early morning hours, devotees were singing a particular song that we sing every morning. And all of a sudden they heard it. They started to hear all these shrieks coming from. They started to hear all these shrieks coming from his house, and then they saw an ambulance come, take him away. So then, what happened? What turned out is that he came down with some very severe cancer, and somehow or other he doused himself in gasoline and lit himself on fire on his own volition. So devotees were trying to understand what to make of this, and the understanding was that he tried to curse the temple, send ghosts and stuff like that, and it came right back at him. So similarly, this when we become jealous, when we become envious, when we try to take people down, when we become non-appreciative of somebody's service, when we become offensive, then it's like we're trying to curse somebody by our negative energy towards them. But then it just comes right back at us. So this is the, you could say, intense lesson that everybody has to learn, either directly or indirectly, by hearing or by experiencing. It's something that should be given up. And as Prabhupada says here, that one should not criticize a pure devotee. One should not criticize a pure devotee. And especially one should not try to find fault in their own spiritual master. And Rupa Goswami says Prabhupada says this is a sum and substance of Srila Rupa Goswami's advice in the 6th verse. I kind of gradually went through the purport there. So, all right, does anybody have any questions or comments? I guess I could read it. Okay. All right. Okay. So let's see here. One second. All right. So Daksha said, Hare Krishna, Jai Srila Prabhupada. Maria obeisances devotees, good night. Mahatma, okay. Jai Madhava Das says, thank you. Please send me based on localized Prabhupada. Thank you for your class, Prabhupada. What exactly does it mean to give yourself to your guru? Okay. So, what does it mean to give yourself to your guru? So, to give yourself to your guru means that there are instructions that the guru gives us. Means personal instructions or general instructions. General instructions would be, okay, follow the four recitative principles, chant 16 rounds, try your best to spread the Sankirtan movement. That's general instructions, you could say. And there might be personal instructions like, okay, I want you to translate the Bhagavad Gita in Swahili or something like that. Whatever it may be. So, but, I mean, as Prabhupada one time in Atlanta, he said, devotee, it was like a room packed full of devotees, hundreds of devotees. A lot of them were monks, brahmacharis, and they said, they're all book distributors. They asked Prabhupada, so what will please you the most? And all the devotees were expecting Prabhupada to say, book distribution. So at that particular time, Prabhupada answered, he said, what will please me the most is if you love Krishna. That will please me the most. So the spiritual master's main desire is that we love Krishna. And that means that we also, you could say, serve the devotees. Like there's one devotee came up with, or one devotee explained this to me one time. He said that if you want to please Krishna, then you should please the Guru, because Krishna's pleased if the Guru is pleased. And then he said, if you want to please the Guru, you should please Krishna, because the Guru is pleased when Krishna is pleased. And he said, if you want to please both Guru and Krishna, then you should please the Vaishnavas, the devotees, because Guru and Krishna are pleased when the Vaishnavas are pleased. You should serve the Vaishnavas. So it means having the right mentality when associating with the devotees. For example, there was one devotee, and he went to Prabhupada and he said, Prabhupada, he was complaining about the management. And Prabhupada said, oh, if you could do better, then you should do better. So then that devotee left, and he started telling all the devotees that Prabhupada made me the temple commander. So he went around bossing all the devotees around, kind of barking orders at all the devotees. So then devotees, they went and complained. They said, Prabhupada, he said you made him the temple commander, and he's bossing and barking orders, so what's your advice? What should we do? Prabhupada called that devotee and he said, first you become a servant of all the Vaishnavas, then you can become temple commander. So the idea is that while dealing with the Vaishnavas, we want to have the proper mood. So Guru's not alone, Guru's with Krishna, Guru's with Vaishnavas, so it's a whole transcendental package, you could say, and we have to deal with all of them carefully. And try to follow their instructions by following we can develop our love for Krishna. All right. So I hope that answered. Yeah, so all right, so Mahatma says, no questions from me. I came late, trying to digest the last part. Thank you. Amazing the time he has been a brahmachari. Congratulations. All right. Well, thank you very much for congratulating me. I'll please pray for me and give me your blessing so I could continue. Mahatma. All right. So I guess there's no more questions. So, okay. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.